actionfigureresource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.
Hello, I am Alex Shaw for Action Figure Resource. With me today is Michael Crawford of MWC Toys. I'm going to ask him a few questions for you guys about his method and experience. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Alex. How are you doing today?
I'm pretty good. First question. With over 2,000 reviews, how do you maintain a fresh perspective, having assessed so much plastic over the years?
Oh, I just copy and paste from one to the next. Yeah, actually, it can be tricky, particularly when you're dealing with things that are the same line. For example, I just did a Masters of the Universe Classics review last night, and I've only done hundreds of those, or Batman black and white statues where there's not even any articulation, right? So you've got a series of statues that you're pretty much, at least in several categories, just saying ditto. That can actually be freeing in some ways, though, because then you can just focus on the specifics of that release, really specific issues, and you don't have to rehash every detail of articulation, because at least your audience already has some background in what's going on.
Yeah. I suppose if you can link to the existing reviews, you can just be like, just check this one out first, and then you've pretty much got the gist on the body type.
Right. Right, so it can be helpful, but you're right. It can be difficult to stay fresh. It's also nice to throw in really weird stuff once in a while, really off-the-wall toys, just to get something different on the site.
That actually leads me to my next question. Do you buy all of these? Because there's lots.
There's lots. Yeah, I do 3 reviews a week, and some reviews might be 7 or 8 figures in a series, so... there's lots. I always tell people that it does really give me an advantage because I see a lot of toys every year, right? I see a lot of collectibles. If you figure 3 toys, it's about 150 reviews a year. And then on top of that, there's many of them are more than one figure. So it's looking at 200-300 collectibles a year. No, I don't buy them all. I do buy probably, these days, it's probably about a 60-40 split. I probably buy about 60% of them, and about 40% of them show up from manufacturers or retailers.
Right. Okay.
And actually the ones I buy, the site sustains itself. So it's a nice hobby because the advertising is sufficient to pay for the ones I buy.
Okay, so you break even.
So I break even.
Well, there's more than just costing money. The other question, and part of this one, was space. Do you live in an aircraft hangar full of shelves? Or?
Yeah, and that is a bit of an issue, that's for sure. I actually have a building on my property that's 1,250 square feet.
I was joking, but that's actually not far off.
Yeah, it's about 50 foot by 25 foot. So it's a big building. And right now, I'm actually trying to I have some stuff in my house on display, some of the nicer statues and some of the a few of the high-end things. But most of it's out there. And right now, I'm trying to get that into some semblance of a nice display. My friends, I had a couple buddies over last week, and they were joking that it looks kind of like the last scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Nice.
Piles of boxes and many of them. But I am working on it. Someday I will have a really nice display out there.
Actually, when you say piles of boxes, how many as a percentage of the figures that you actually own are loose versus mint on card?
Well, when it comes to action figures, it's probably 70% are loose and about 30% are still carded. Obviously, since I open stuff up for review, I open a lot of my stuff up. So it's only stuff. Now, some stuff, like, for example, The World of Springfield, which I was a huge fan of, I have that entire series both loose and carded. So there's a few things that I am a huge fan of that I'll do that with. And then there's other things that I just buy for myself that I don't ever review, and it just stays in the package. But so it's probably, about a 70-30 split.
How much is a percentage, just guessing off the top of your head, do you think have never seen the light of day since you first bought them?
Oh, good God, at least 20% or so, I bet.
Lord.
And as I'm going through, I'm cleaning, this process of going through all these toys of 20 years of toys in the barn. I'm unboxing everything so I can look at what's in the box, decide what I'm keeping and what I'm going to put on display and what I'm going to just store. And in that process, I'm finding stuff I haven't seen in 6 or 7 years. It's kind of cool because you'd be going through boxes and you go, oh, I didn't know I had that. That's great. Yeah, you open up some of them and you look at it and you go, what the hell was I thinking when I bought this?
Do you get the opportunity to show this off to kids or adults who aren't going to go, what?
Well, first off, I have a lot of friends who are collectors, even here in in state and in town. I know a fair number of people. It also depends. Like in my house, I have a bar and a home theater, so that's where a lot of the premium format statues are, and they kind of fit that theme, that movie theme. So people will find, and the prop replicas are a lot of those are in there too, and those people find that really cool, right? That there's that movie theme to it. The toys, yeah, I share with kids when I can. You know, I have younger kids, I have older kids as well, and I shared with their friends when they were young. But a lot of my kids' friends think it's really cool that, you know, their buddy's dad has all this junk.
I can tell you right now, it'd be like Wonka's Chocolate Factory just to me. But
yeah,
but with toys. 2 more questions on this before we move on to the next official question. One, I'm assuming you don't eBay much of this stuff or sell it on. It seems like you kind of like keeping hold of everything.
Right. Like I said, as I go through this cleaning process, I probably will in the next year have a fair number of eBay sales to try to prune the ridiculousness. But for the most part, no. Normally, as a regular thing, no. I keep everything. I give some of it away to people who I know will really appreciate it.
Oh, cool. The other question is, my wife and I were just in the supermarket, and she was complaining to me that I am terrible to buy things for Christmas. We are, as we speak, just coming up to Christmas. Are you terrible to buy things for Christmas?
My wife complains about it all the time because I'm terrible. Because I generally will get what I want ahead of time, right? I've already got. When it comes to my hobby, I already get the things I want. So for her, finding anything is really tough. And yeah, she complains about it all the time.
Understandable. It must be a common complaint, actually, amongst collectors' wives. Or collectors' husbands, on that matter. Right. So the next question on the actual official list is, what do you do when you're not reviewing figures?
Oh, I'm an IT director, so I have a pointy-haired boss job, much like Dilbert.
Straightforward office job.
Yeah, managing computers and technology.
Any more to that?
No, not really. I mean, it's about as dull and boring as it sounds.
Okay. So question 4. What made you start accepting guest reviews? Now, I can pretty much guess this one, but if you want to go into that.
Well, it was kind of interesting because at the time, again, I was one of the very first sites, 12 years ago to start doing this sort of thing. And then I was really the only one doing guest reviews when I started that process, because it does take a little extra work in the sense that I have to edit and put the review together for the person when they send it in.
I do the same for my site. Yeah.
Right. But the concept was, first I wanted to have some other opinions, a little bit more than just me talking about the same stuff over and over again. I wanted to have one of the things I like about my site is that I have pretty broad coverage. I cover everything from 3 or 4 inch action figures through high end statues and prop replicas and most lines and even some Japanese stuff. And so I try to have as broad of appeal as possible instead of just focusing on one line or one type of action figure.
Right. Okay.
And the guest reviews kind of help do that too. It allows me to cover some stuff I might not ever otherwise get on the site.
So it's kind of a way of broadening not just the scope, but the style.
Correct. Yeah, get some more opinions on there.
Yeah, I'm assuming though you do have like certain rules that you give out to the guest reviewers to.
They're pretty basic. It's not too complicated. I've never had any trouble. Probably the only real rule is you have to have some kind of a score at the end.
Gotcha. Okay. Favorite 3 toys when you were 5 to 10 years old?
Mark's Best of the West, Eric the Viking, Captain Action Dr. Evil, and Major Matt Mason.
Didn't even have to think about it.
Yep.
Okay. Favorite 3 toys when you were about 15?
Well, let's see. What were the girls' names?
Was there a period basically when you just like toys, and then?
Probably from about 15 to 25 or 30. Yeah,
That's actually a question. What made you go back between 25 and 30 then?
My wife. Actually, I started reading comic books again in the late 80s, and of course that's a gateway drug. And
Yes.
I found myself starting to buy a toy here, a toy there, sort of thing. And then my wife, the turning point was, and then I also collected. I've always collected something.
Yeah.
I joke that the only difference between me and the people on the television show Hoarders is that I have a sense of organization. But the turning point was my wife bought me the full set of Ren and Stimpy action figures.
Nice.
In the early 90s, and I actually kept some of them in the package. And that was the end.
So early 90s would actually have been the time when they started making toys not just for kids as well.
Right.
There were a
Yep.
few in the 80s, but mostly it was like McFarlane and that kind of side of things. Yeah, so you really hit it at just the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what have been your this is going to be a good one. What have been your favourite developments in toys since you started? So that's basically 12 years of industry changes and new features. So what have you liked? Also, you can add to this what you haven't liked or what trends you wish would actually stop.
Sure. I love McFarlane really made the industry in the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to see him take actual action figures, not, at that point he was still big on articulation in those early Spawn lines, and he still was very big on making them into toys. They weren't just little plastic statues, but they still retained that DNA of something a kid would like to play with, and so I love that. That was wonderful to see that kind of sculpt and paintwork get added to good articulation, so you had really great looking toys. Mm-hmm. I wasn't fond of the fact that then that slowly slipped into what I called nerd Hummels, which became nothing but these little plastic statues that you couldn't do anything with, and no kid would ever want.
Or occasionally move one arm.
And, be able to move it, and it's totally useless. Or I love the ones that have like one or two leg joints, and the only purpose of those joints is to make it harder for the stupid thing to stand up. So
that's baffling.
Yeah, so that I wasn't particularly fond of. I like the inclusion of electronics. Again, Playmates with the World of Springfield line, and we've seen it in a number of other ways, including electronics and then an online feature to things. Mm-hmm. It has been is great. It's a way to keep action figures alive and to keep that role play, that physical role play, going with the online role play. Another trend that I've always hated that just drives me nuts because I can actually picture in my mind the guys in suits sitting around a table coming up with these ideas is when you take two things that are good on their own, so you jam them together because that must mean they're going to be twice as good. It's like when they put Star Wars Darth Vader on a motorcycle, right? Yeah. They had that Star Wars line for a while where you had characters on motorcycles. Well, motorcycles are cool, and Star Wars is cool. Put them together. Well, no, don't do that. And you can almost see the guys coming up with these ideas, in some room somewhere, throwing stuff out there. And don't mash up stuff just because you can. Speaking of mashing up, not much of a fan of Darth Tater and the many. There's about a billion versions of Mr. Potato Head. Yeah. There's the Batman ones, and So there's and recently in the last 7 or 8 years, I'm. Because I grew up in the late 60s, early 70s, so for me, 12-inch action figures were action figures, right? G.I. Joe, Mark's Best of the West. Mm-hmm. So for me to see fantastic figures in that scale from companies like Hot Toys and Interbay, reach a level that it's really art, but it still is a toy. You can still pose it and play with it, and I think that's a fantastic evolution of the figure. Yeah. Just because I wanted to get a bit of a personal rant in, I'm annoyed at the fact that everyone seems to, especially Hasbro, seems to be focusing on the 3 3/4 inch scale. It's just too small for a really nice sculpt. The ideal for me was, do you remember the SOTA Street Fighter figures? Oh, absolutely. I have the whole set. Love those things. Perfect paint jobs, perfect articulation, loads of accessories, 2 heads. They're great. Reiterations of classic lines come out, but now they're in smaller scale. Case in point, the Marvel Superheroes line, which are considerably smaller than the original Marvel Legends, but still in the UK at least, cost $8.99, which seems excessive for a figure of that size. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it's just me ranting. But. Well, and it's interesting because that scale came about the first time because of the rising cost of plastic and manufacturing, right? And so we're trying to see that happen again. I think that when you're talking about a pure modern action figure, an all plastic action figure, that 6 to 8 inch scale is just ideal. I mean, you just can't beat that scale for playability. You know, that posability and getting good articulation into the figure. Now the one advantage to that 4-inch scale is playsets and vehicles, right?
That's
at least
true,
at that scale, you can manufacture fairly large playsets. But look at Turtles this year. You know, Playmates put out that Turtles line. I don't know how it's doing in the UK, but it is flying off the shelves in the States. Yeah, the show's doing well. The line, Playmates showed again that they know how to do Turtles, and they're doing really well. And they've got a full-size sewer playset. They've got 3 or 4 vehicles, including the van, and those are a 5 to 6 inch scale. So you can do it in that bigger scale if the market's there.
I might get the sewer play set because I got the original way back in like 1990-ish.
And speaking of big playsets, we also have that Masters of the Universe Castle Grayskull coming from Mattel. And that's a hell of a big playset.
Battle Cat cost me, because I had to pay customs on that one, so that was a scorcher just for Battle Cat. So I was like, I can't get Castle Grayskull in good conscience, but it looked gorgeous. But yeah, I had that originally when I was 3, 4, my daughter's age. Wow. Mm-hmm. Actually, another thing that annoys me, and again, I should be off this soapbox, and this is all about you, but my daughter's now into My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, and so we've bought her a whole bunch of the sort of the medium scale, like $5 ones, and they look great and collectible, but they're all like the same face. And like they may put different sticker eyes on them, but none of them look like the actual ponies in the show. None of them have any kind of attitude at all. So Applejack, I don't know how. I'm not a brony, just so you guys know. But no offense to bronies, just I'm a deeply closeted brony, if anything.
There you go.
But Applejack has all of this attitude and sass, and then her figure's got this sort of demure face. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't get
is
why
amazing
they don't
how popular My Little Pony has become again. Of all of the sort of, I don't want to call them reissues, but of all of the toys that have sort of been revamped and released again, like Cabbage Patch Kids and, My Little Pony seems to be the one that really has taken off. And for example, my daughter, who's 11 now, for the last 4 or 5 San Diego Comic-Cons, they always have Hasbro always has a My Little Pony exclusive. And for up until this last summer, every year I picked her one up, and it was like one of the simplest exclusives for me to get, no problem. And this last year, I never got her one. It was just impossible. They just blew out of there, and they were hugely popular.
I don't know what it is, because my daughter, being all of 4, had no cultural reference point for this at all. And what actually turned her onto it was I was watching Robot Chicken Star Wars, and there was a little My Little Tauntaun parody advert, and she kept singing that, so I showed her a bit of Friendship is Magic, and suddenly it had its hooves into her.
Oh, absolutely. Classics are classics, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it would appear
when you do have a great design like that and a great concept, it's non-generational.
Although she does reject the classic 83 My Little Pony. She calls them old ponies and just doesn't want to watch it.
Yeah.
Okay, enough about my daughter and me. Okay, so next question. What is your method for capturing the floor at... I've put San Diego Comic-Con because I was just looking through all the huge amount of pictures you posted from that. But just, any Comic-Con can do. But the fact that San Diego is huge is probably a big question here.
And it is a lot of work. What I generally do is I try to have some plan of which booths I'm going to hit first on which days. To some extent, the manufacturers don't make it any easier because some of them, like Mattel and Hasbro, won't pull stuff out until Saturday. They'll kind of stagger the stuff they put out.
Gotcha.
And so it's a huge pain in the neck. I want to shoot Mattel on Wednesday night at preview night, but I know I'm just going to have to shoot it again on Friday. So you have to kind of take that into consideration too. And I also want to try to get as many of the small companies covered as I can because I want to make sure that they're getting their money's worth out of showing up at San Diego.
Yeah.
So it's and then it's a lot of work to make sure you get enough pictures, quality pictures, and then make sure you can get them up as quickly as possible. So I have software that I have all set up ahead of time. I have directories on my website all set up. I do as much prep work as I possibly can to make the process when I'm there as easy as possible. But I'll be honest, I don't get more than 3 or 4 hours of sleep each night through the whole con. So it's a lot of work. But it's a lot of fun. I haven't missed a con in 12 or 13 years now.
That's one of the things that's galling about living in the UK. I want to go to Comic-Con, I want to go to PAX, and it's every time I just look at the prices of getting across there, it's insanely expensive. But that's on my list of things to definitely do.
Well, last year I had quite a conundrum. My daughter is 11, and she's a diver. Mm-hmm. And she dives at nationals, at national level. And so one of her national meets was at the same week as Comic-Con this last summer for the first time. And I told her, it wasn't actual nationals. It was a meet she had to do well at to go to nationals. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I'm going to the meet with you. And she said, "You're what?" And I said, "Yeah, Dad's going to the meet with you." She said, "No, Dad, you don't need to do that. You can go to Comic-Con." I'm like, oh, what a sweet daughter. And so, being the great dad I am, I went to Comic-Con. I did what my daughter told me to do. Well, she did well, and she went to nationals, so it was all good.
It's more than just about you. There's a lot of people who need those pictures. So
there you go.
Yeah, there you go. That is a very good daughter you have there.
That's right.
Again, to bring it back to my daughter, I should stop talking about my family, but PAX that I mentioned before happens to fall at the one in Seattle, like on her birthday week every single year, and will till the end of time.
Yep.
So I guess she's coming to PAX as a birthday treat.
Yeah, that's the problem I have with the Toy Fair, the U.S. Toy Fair, which is the manufacturers. I used to go to that up until 11 years ago. I went to that every year for several years, and then it happens to always fall on my kid's birthday.
And of course, you can only take them to the Toy Fair once or twice before they realise that it's mainly work.
That's right.
And the last one, and you can also add to this any lines that you're particularly looking forward to, but any hints as to what you might be doing with MWC in the future?
Well, one of the things, I'm always open to suggestions and ideas from readers. A lot of the things I've added in have been incorporated because readers have mentioned it. I like the overall design of my site. I had the same web designer who does Rebel Scum and the Force.net did my site.
Okay.
And it's been 12 or actually about 10 years ago that I switched to this design, but I like it. It's simple. It's easy for me to remember how to do everything, and it's easy for regular readers to find things. It takes a little while for new readers, but they seem to catch on. And so I may do a redesign of the main page. I like the way the reviews are laid out, so I probably won't change that. Mm-hmm. One of the features I added and I'm enjoying but would like feedback if anybody would like to provide it is the life sizer feature on each review. Mm-hmm. One of the things that people have always it's always been an issue is scale, making sure people understand, this thing that has this picture, it looks really big in the picture, but it's only 2 inches tall. Or this thing that looks like normal in the picture is actually 20 inches tall. It's hard for people to get scale, and I always included a picture that would show the figure with other figures. But even that, it's like the classic, stick an apple or a quarter next to it to give somebody scale. It helps, but it's still not perfect. The life sizer feature I added is some guys I know started this software product that allows you to calibrate your screen once. And then when you click on the picture, a new picture will come up that's actually life size. That's actually in scale on your screen, so you can hold things up next to it and see how big it really is.
That's brilliant.
And I think it's a good feature. I think I'm the only review site using it at this point, and I think it's a great idea. So ideas like that, I'd like to use some more of that. One thing you probably won't see is forums. I get asked that question all the time. Why don't I have forums? And the simple fact of that is they're a huge amount of effort and work.
Don't I know it?
Yeah. And so I tend to hang out at 2 or 3 other forums quite a lot, and then we just discuss things over there. I try not to add that much effort onto my site.
Well, the life sizer thing sounds absolutely brilliant. I can't think of a site that's more appropriate use of that feature. So I'm assuming for massive, huge figures, then you just have to scroll up and up and up if you actually want to see how.
Yep. It shows you exactly how big it is.
Gotcha. Because we got
Well, and there was a couple of things. I just want to mention the
sure.
poppies. I always like to mention the poppies. That's coming up. We do the Pop Culture Collectibles Awards every year. I've been doing those for this is the 4th or 5th year. And what that is it's sort of the Academy Awards for pop culture collectibles. I a few years ago noticed that, I was doing an awards that was my personal bests and worsts of the year. And then I always did what I called the People's Picks, which were a chance for readers to vote on what they liked.
Gotcha.
But no site, and other sites do the same thing. They do their own picks. But there wasn't any, on the collectible side, there wasn't any industry awards. There wasn't any companies and artists getting together and saying what was good and what was bad. So the poppies are that. I have about 150 judges spread out between...
Whoa, this is serious. Okay.
Yeah, between companies, artists, retailers, a small number of collectors are mixed in with the judges, and then media sites. And we've had judges like Jordan Hembrow, the guy who does the Toy Hunter show on the Travel Channel, has been a judge. I have the vice president who works at Hasbro. I have marketing people from Mattel. So we have lots of the big guys, and then we have people from smaller companies like Enterbay and Hot Toys are involved, and then a lot of the artists who design these things. And so it's an interesting awards because it gets a different perspective than the collector's side. And so we'll be doing that. The voting will start in the first to second week of January, and then we always we'll finalize it at the end of January and make the announcements.
Okay. Are you going to do any kind of, obviously way too late to just suddenly go, oh, that's a good idea, but webcast, or is there going to be kind of like a media kerfuffle about it, or is it more of a straight...
Well, we've tried to figure out, I always let, because then the media judges always post all the information as well, but I've tried to figure out a way that we could actually present the awards in some fashion, because there is an actual plaque that everybody gets for their awards, and companies like Sideshow and Hot Toys, they put them on display, and I actually have a picture from Sideshow where they had last year's award, and they had all their artists in a room together holding it up, and so. I've tried to come up with a way. There's not a good show that's close, right, in time. You could do it at Toy Fair, but the problem is then no people are at Toy Fair, just the companies are, so that's kind of a downer. And you can't. And New York Toy Fair, they keep moving that damn thing around from fall to winter to summer.
So there's going to be no set date every year.
Yeah, there's no really good opportunity at this point to do that. But now that you mention it, you could probably do some kind of, I don't know, we could come up with something. I keep thinking about it, so any suggestions anybody comes up with.
To hire a venue or like do a thing yourself.
Yeah, something like that.
Because I love the idea of industries actually doing like internal celebration type stuff like that. Because I mean, I don't know how aware you are of the Spike TV Awards for video games. It's cringe-inducing if you actually work in the industry, or if you're part of the actual serious side of talking about video games, because it's all sort of, ew, we got Jack Black doing a thing, and
right? Yeah.
It's like they're trying to do the Oscars, but very much with like bros in mind. And ultimately, it doesn't have to be deadly serious, but to have some pride in it, and for it to actually be the people who are actually working on it. It sounds really impressive the way that you... Was it you who actually organised all this with the poppies? Wow.
Yeah. And you can go to the site, like I said, I'll send a link along, but to last year's if you want to check it out.
I would, yeah, please. You know what? I think that's all the time we've got, but I'd actually like to interview again at some point. This has been great fun. Thank you very much. And Michael, for anyone who has not heard of your site, where can they go to find you?
I'm at www.mwctoys.com.
Indeed. If you're watching on YouTube, you will have seen some delicious high-res photos that could be found on the site, so go there to see more. Okay, thank you very much, Michael.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more news, reviews, interviews, and features at Action Figure Resource. I've been Alex Shaw.
Action Figures Resource. ActionFiguresResource.com.
ActionFigureResource.com. Yesterday's toys, today's treasures.